Thank you very much. So over to you, Nisreen.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to have you all here today. So my name is Nesrin Amin. I'm a senior lecturer in digital marketing at Royal Holloway, University of London. And um, I hold multiple hats, actually. So one of them is being an academic at Royal Holloway, which is an absolutely amazing institution, super lucky to be working with. But at the same time, I hold an industry role as well, being an ambassador for the Institute of Directors. We have a network of 20,000 businesses across the UK. And my role somehow over the last 12 months has revolved so much around how to use AI to support different businesses and from different backgrounds and sectors. And I'm also taking a role in terms of being a policy advisor as well as a fellow of the Department for Education, specifically a division of the Department for Education called Skills England. And we are looking at AI upskilling at the moment and how to support businesses to adopt AI in a better way and a more effective way as well. And a lot of the work that I do is not just around academia, as you can see from my description, is also actually hands-on work with different businesses from different sectors. So it's an absolute pleasure today to actually be able to talk to you about this, talk to you a bit more about the role of AI, how AI is changing businesses, society, and the landscape of what we do here in the UK as well, and what support can actually be offered. And maybe talk to you a bit as well about a new masterclass that we are offering at Royal Holloway, University of London, starting from September this year, which will be run in our London campus. So more than happy to answer any questions as well. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat, and we can also have a nice discussion once I finish the presentation today. So moving on to hopefully the system and the laptop will allow me to the next bit. Yeah. So if you haven't been to Royal Holloway, we do have a wonderful campus. I guarantee that. We haven't had any visitors yet to our campus that haven't been able to compliment or haven't complimented the campus so much. We are in it so much, and we work there, our offices are there, and we still admire the facilities, we still admire the campus. So you're very welcome to visit us. Our doors are always open for businesses. In fact, just in June, we organized an event which Marcus has very kindly joined as well, and we had over 70 businesses joining from across the country. Our values at the university is being innovative, daring, respectful, and open. If you'd like to know a bit more about the work that we do at the university, please feel free to visit our website or contact me directly. And one of the roles actually I hold at Royal Holloway, which I forgot to mention, is also director of the Digital Organization and Society Research Center, which is one of the three main research centers at the School of Business and Management. And we specifically look at how technology can support different technologies, not just AI, but can support businesses. So more than happy to connect you, and it will be a pleasure to also, of course, welcome you on campus and maybe join in one of our upcoming events as well in the next academic year. Apart from this beautiful campus in Egham, I'm also very pleased to share that we have another campus in London, which is just about 15 minutes away from Oxford Street. It's in Senate House, where actually our Leadership in the Age of AI executive course will be delivered over three days in September this year. And it's an executive program specifically for managers and business owners, whether working for large companies or SME owners. So I'll be talking a bit more about this program. It's a beautiful place. I was just there actually in the last 2 days, not far from Covent Garden. The facilities are fantastic. So again, we organize some events there as well, and you're very welcome to join. Moving on to the actual talk for today. Very often I get approached by businesses from different sectors telling me that they understand that AI is important for their business, but they don't really understand how it can support the specific context of the business. Which areas can AI really help in? And at the same time, how do they make sure that they upskill themselves and their staff to work with different AI applications? And If I was going to, or if I am to kind of describe the current landscape of AI and how we are experiencing AI, either as individuals or as business owners from different sectors, I would really just describe it in one way. It's much more like a Formula One race, where you see different teams, different companies competing to work with AI in different ways. But at the same time, they acknowledge that there are so many challenges and not even sure what AI applications would be more suitable for the business. How do we utilize these applications for better productivity, better efficiency, and to meet the business goals? And many of the AI training providers often approach me to say, well, we ended up working like consultants as well, because we're trying to tell businesses what AI applications do they need to use, and then what skills gaps are there, and how do we really empower staff and employees from different backgrounds to work with AI in better ways and improve the business processes. And it's really, really quick as well because of the fast pace of AI as a technology and the complexity of the technology as well. So we're not dealing with one type of AI system, rather than seeing businesses dealing with very different types of AI systems and different functions. So for finance, for example, it could be completely different from marketing. And even for management purposes, the types of AI applications are getting more and more complex, and they are being merged with data and data science, and it's getting more and more kind of not just challenging, but maybe the challenge is how do we update ourselves all the time with all the new AI applications that are coming into the market. So now we're dealing with generative AI. We've been dealing with Gen AI for a while now through ChatGPT, Midjourney, Claude, and others, which are the basics, really. There are many others that are currently in the market. But we do expect to move in the next 3 years towards agentic AI. And with agentic AI, it's actually getting more complex, because imagine we are likely to live in a world where AI is making automated decision, deciding on its own. At the moment, we are getting the outputs and we are making the decisions. But an AI maybe is responsible for the more repetitive task or repetitive aspects of the business, the tasks that we might find boring. But in the next few years, with the agentic AI approaching, we are really dealing with separate entities. That puts businesses in a risky situation in terms of, how do I compete? What's the best strategy here? How do I fill the gap? Where can AI really help me? What can I do here? A lot of the work that I've been doing, especially in the last 12 months, has been with businesses across different sectors, trying to understand how do they actually use AI, how do they upskill themselves, and how do they get updated with what's happening there. And interestingly, one of the main observations was that, how do I get AI to work better in line with my business plan? So maybe the first thing to do, really, have a look at your business plan. What objectives have you set there for the next 2 to 3 years? I'm not even going to dare to say 5 years, because our landscape of business is really changing so quickly. It's almost impossible now to put a 6 or 10 years plan for a business. Things change really, really quickly. So most businesses reported that their business plan would not exceed 2 to 3 years, really. But really look at the objectives and what we're trying to achieve here. And then from there, trying to map and where AI can actually help in terms of achieving these objectives. And maybe it's becoming even more and more important now for businesses, not just to have a business plan, but the business plan should actually be accompanied with an AI plan that complements it, that helps the business owner to really understand, how do I achieve these objectives better and in a more efficient way with the integration of AI, or what we call in some of the research that we do here is AI as a partner. Now, another key question we are very often asked is, what are we doing in terms of policy making? What support can we actually get as business owners? Is there any funding there? What policies are there to help us understand how do we use AI, for example, in a more ethical way? Was the sort of environmental aspect, was the direction here in the UK in terms of AI and the planning for AI in different sectors and for economic growth as well. So I'm just sharing some of the news headlines here. Some of you probably either attended, others might have watched this in the news. So London Tech Week took place in earlier this year. And there was a huge focus on AI and the use of AI for economic growth, and at the same time, AI upskilling in the UK. And it's been put really as one of the main priorities in the UK in different sectors. So looking at, for example, sectors like construction, higher education, defense, creative industries, and others. Really, we're trying to see how AI supports these sectors in the best way possible, especially given the lack of digital skills to begin with in these sectors, even before the emergence of AI. So there is a huge focus at the moment in the UK on these areas. You probably also saw that recently the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology introduced the Digital Inclusion Action Plan for businesses and how to support business in different sectors, and by focusing specifically on inclusivity as well. So how do we support business owners and workers who come from certain underrepresented groups to make sure that no one is left behind? So these are one of the initiatives that are really interesting, and we see in more and more reports and more updates coming as well from DCIT on this particular committee. Interestingly, Microsoft recently announced that AI adoption by small businesses specifically could boost the UK economy by £78 billion. And the full report is actually also available online, so please do have a look. And it also specifies which areas exactly can AI help with in different functions of small businesses. At the same time, the UK government action AI Opportunities Action Plan was actually introduced in January earlier this year by Matt Clifford. And it was really interesting to see what's happening in terms of the 50 key recommendations in relation to AI in that plan. And it's really looking at an overall assessment of the AI skills gaps in the UK and how do we address these key challenges by improving our talent pipeline, by also upskilling people from different sectors and educating businesses in terms of how AI can really help within the specific focus of the business and the future vision for the business as well. However, key challenges are still there, so I'm not going to go in depth into all that. But one of the key areas, for example, and one of the key statistics that were recently announced this year is by the UK government, which showed that as part of the Digital Inclusion Action Plan, which showed that there is approximately 1.6 million people in the UK that are living offline, and around a quarter of the UK population have the lowest level of digital capacity. This does actually include small business owners, and maybe there are other areas as well for us to consider. So, for example, out of the 1.5 million jobs in the UK that are highly vulnerable to automation, 70% of these businesses are actually held by women. Now, interestingly, from my work with wonderful female entrepreneurs in the UK, I could see that some of them are highly innovative. They are really interested in AI adoption. They call their ChatGPTs a mini me. So they upload their CV, they upload their vision for the business and what they want to do for the next 2 to 3 years. And then they use AI as a partner to really help develop ideas, content creation, for example, for marketing, financial forecasting, and so on. So I think it's usually the very first stage that they find very challenging. But then once they get the training needed, we see the growth and we see the scale of the work that they do completely change because of their understanding of how to work better with AI. I've already covered this part, so I'm not going to go in depth into the AI Opportunities Action Plan, but just wanted to highlight the industrial strategy was also published earlier this year, I think in June. And one of the key, it's a large document really, but one of the key areas in the industrial strategy was focusing on place-based growth supporting businesses in terms of skills for strategic sectors, as well as inclusive economic growth for different businesses in different sectors as well, and acknowledging that there are some more challenges in certain sectors in comparison to others, and finding ways to support these businesses as well. Now, one of the key questions that we are often asked by businesses in the UK as well is, how can AI transform my business? Am I really at risk because of the challenges associated with AI? How do I understand how to work with AI better? And why do I need to go through all of this effort? And let's face it, through all the delivery of previous training on AI, I could see that actually there is no way of learning anything about AI without seeing it as a way of studying. So we need to put so much effort in terms of understanding how it works and how do we use it best for our business. It's not just that we'll be asking AI to perform a certain task and then we'll just be relaxed. That's not, unfortunately, how it works when adopting AI for a business. But maybe some of the key, or one of the key areas, is profitability. So unlocking new revenues in terms of increasing, for example, margins through automation and AI-driven insights. Many of the businesses that I've been working with reported that it frees a lot of their staff time, so the staff can focus on the more creative elements of the business, maybe looking at areas that they haven't even explored before because of the lack of time that they had before AI emerged as part of their daily routine. And now they could free more time for actually the more creative tasks and maybe outreach programs and so on. The second really key benefit reported by business as well is enhancing decision making. So that sort of precision in terms of predictive analytics that AI can provide actually in many ways outperforms human performance. AI can really handle vast amount of data that we as humans, no matter how good we are unable to handle, process, and make informed decisions based on. So I think that's really one of the key areas that applies to different functions in the business, not just from a management perspective. AI in marketing has been one of the key areas of growth, I must say, and it's absolutely amazing to see how businesses are actually using AI in very creative ways. For example, personalized customer experiences by understanding the key points in which the customers are actually can interact with AI in better ways and get a more personalized experience, which is even more important for the younger generation nowadays. But we also see in businesses using AI for automating social media posts as well. Some businesses are integrating AI with deep fakes, and they're coming up with avatars to represent the business, which are becoming even more and more popular outside the UK. And the expectation is that they might actually become even more popular in the UK as well in the future. Certainly, there is a lot of innovation happening in terms of product development and in terms of creative problem solving and enhanced or with the use of enhanced AI tools. And that goes across sectors really, from pharmaceuticals to creative industry. Even in higher education, we are seeing new forms of modules and new forms of programs being developed now with the emergence of AI. Which is interesting because I remember in China 10 years ago, they introduced the AI professor or the robot professor, and it was something really new back in China. And now we see this might actually be happening in higher education in the UK as well, with some universities introducing it. Finally, also, it really helps in terms of strengthening resilience, so identifying risks early. In fact, with certain AI tools, you are able to predict what key risks in terms of whether financial or non-financial the business might have. So AI tools, for example, machine learning and large language modeling can offer that sort of in-depth mapping of the current landscape of business internally and externally, and then very precisely provide you with an overview of where you are now, what the key challenges are, where the risks are, and even the severity of these risks as well. And that's really helpful, I think, specifically in the current landscape that we are in, with the change in societal, economic, and even political environment, and which, as you know, can affect business in different ways as well. I did talk earlier, and I didn't want to make this talk academic, so please ignore the slides if you find it too complex. It's just really one small point that I wanted to make here, and I mentioned earlier in the presentation as well, is that it's really important to keep in mind that when we talk about AI, we're not just talking about one system. We're talking about different systems here. So it could be visible AI, like a robot, for example. And it's interesting because I've just been into Italy and we were greeted at the Rome Chamber of Commerce by a robot. And the robot was actually telling us about the information about the Chamber of Commerce itself, but also about different businesses in Italy, which was super interesting. But we are also looking at different systems like chatbots, for example, or like the integration of AI in social media and websites. So what we call invisible AI. I'm not sure how many of you talk to ChatGPT on daily basis. I personally talk to it on daily basis. I make sure I train it really well to be a mini me. And it's in a very professional capacity, not in a personal one at all. But it's really interesting because you kind of get to see the change in 6 months. I've been using my own GPT for the last 2 years, and I really trained it to act, behave, and in many ways now, even the accent and the way it talks is almost similar, very similar to mine as well. So really important to understand there are different types of AI systems and AI intelligences that businesses are working with. And really important to upskill ourselves to understand what AI systems do we actually need. How long are we going to need them for? How often do we need to upskill ourselves given that AI as a technology is changing very rapidly? Just 2 days ago, I heard of a new application which is expected to be stronger than ChatGPT and DeepSeek. So I don't know if it's going to come out in the market soon to the public. We still are gonna wait and see, but it's really interesting to see what's happening there. And I think one of the key areas for us really to keep in mind is that there is constant learning that happens here. It's not just about learning one application and that's it, rather than really, it's more about adaptability, resilience, and maybe thirst to get to know more about what AI can offer for that business as well. As I mentioned, AI is evolving so fast. So 2 days ago, I've heard about something very new. If it comes in the market, then that will be sort of game changer for different businesses across sectors. We are yet to look at an AI application that has it all in one platform. And that's, again, another question that comes from many businesses that I work with. One of the key challenges, even in terms of the training they are offered usually, is that there is one system here, another system there, one application here, one application is used for finance, another for marketing, another for management and decision making, another for supply chain. But it just gets too complicated without having everything integrated in one platform. And that's something that I know developers are currently working on, and many businesses are really interested in getting to that. You know, one easy platform that could be used across different departments in the business with safe data usage at the same time. So that evolvement of AI is likely to see not just AI sort of providing better outputs and better recommendations and more, maybe better precisions as well in terms of the recommendations, but also easier way of use. So everything integrated in one platform where a business owner can actually access it and sort of deal with different applications in one platform. And that's something we are trying to explore in the course that I'll be talking about later as well. Can we actually have one personalized platform for the business based on the sector that it's in and based on the work and the vision for that business as well? I wanted to share some interesting stories and some quotes from the small businesses that my team and I have been working with for the last 5 years. And I wanted to share how they are describing AI. I should also mention that all of the quotes here have been provided by female entrepreneurs who are thriving, and I'm very proud to see them thriving in their business. And I follow them usually on LinkedIn to see what they are doing. Many of them have been winning awards as well. But one of the key quotes really that caught my attention, I think I mentioned it earlier in the talk as well, is and she was mentioning here ChatGPT, and that was a year ago. And she mentioned, I'm training it to be a mini me as a business owner. Another one who interestingly has been working with Amazon for the last 5 years, and she runs a business on her own. She decided she didn't want any employees. That's a single person business, and she's making over 500,000 a year. So I think she's running it very successfully. But just for the last 2 years, she's actually been working extensively with ChatGPT, and she calls it her best friend. Another one mentioned that it gives her mental space. So the tasks that she used to take hours with, ChatGPT or other platforms could do it really quickly. And in fact, I should mention, although we mentioned ChatGPT a lot, actually many businesses are now creating their own GPTs on their own personal space to make sure that the data is kept secure as well. So that's another option. It's something that we're going to try and talk about as well in the course to be delivered in September. Interestingly, another female entrepreneur who's based in London doing really, really well with her business mentioned that it doesn't necessarily reduce my time, but I'm actually learning. I'm learning new things. I'm learning new things about the sector, about the business. What can I actually do better? So she kind of didn't use it as a way of her to, relax, but rather than inform her decisions and understand what she can do better in the future to manage a sustainable business. Again, I did talk, and I'm going to move through this very quickly because I have other slides to also share, and I want to give some time as well for Q&As. But I did mention that although in general, we see many business owners worried about the use of AI, the reality is they are very likely to have used AI anyway in their personal life. So there is something called invisible AI, which are the AI-enabled algorithms on social media, for example, or on the website. So we are actually using AI on a daily basis. AI is in our phones, on our laptops, is there. It's not like I don't expect actually any of us really to have not used AI at all, whether in a visible or an invisible way, at some point in our lives. This project that we worked on with small businesses, but specifically we looked at female entrepreneurs with children under the age of 10 years old, who were running their entire business on Instagram. So they didn't have a website. They didn't have, any other physical presence. They were running just completely this business on Instagram. And in fact, these photos that you see here, they are real photos from their Instagram accounts. And the main reasons why they started the business was that, they were looking after children, they had issues with childcare costs, and they really wanted to start something during the COVID period. And when they started, they didn't know how much the AI algorithms can actually control the success of the business. And they really wanted to learn so much about what can be done now that they understood that AI plays and it has a role in terms of the visibility of their business and success of their business on Instagram. They also wanted to understand better how do they actually work well with these algorithms? What captures the attention? Why would a certain post go viral and lead to so much sale and success for certain companies, while another post, which is super creative, someone might have spent hours on, doesn't lead anywhere? So that was really interesting. And for them, they started this sort of self-help groups on Instagram again, and they were all sort of supporting each other and trying to learn from each other. And they had their own mentors as well. So they ended up working with what we call invisible AI. They only understood where AI is after starting the business, which was really interesting to see. Now, once they started, we identified that actually the value they got from understanding how AI algorithms were working on Instagram and what made a post click while another didn't, what wasn't just about economic value for the business. They did very clearly state different types of value. So one of them, for example, was the engagement value. They were able to engage with new clients, potential clients, and other business owners as well. And the AI was really helpful in terms of collecting them there, or what we call the invisible AI. Self-preservation value. So they did mention that it did actually change who they are. It changed how they see themselves as role models in society. But also they mentioned the cognitive value, which was the really learning that they were able to gain from these interactions and from working with different groups and from trial and error as well in terms of posting and seeing what gets the best and sort of interactions through the work with the right tags and right keywords and so on. Another area I wanted to talk about as well, which again we hear from many businesses, especially in the creative industries and others. What impact can AI actually have on our business and us in terms of creativity? And interestingly, what I'm sharing here in the screen is a video completely automated created by AI. It has no human input in it whatsoever. And I find it really interesting, especially if you're into art, because it shows you that actually AI can look after that sort of creative element in many ways. I think AI is likely to improve our creativity in many ways, and it's because of that earlier point that I mentioned as well, is it gives us enough time to think, explore areas that we haven't explored before. But also it means that instead of looking at AI as a threat, maybe it's time to look at AI as a partner. So instead of the whole automation idea, and we see many reports coming every day saying, well, businesses might change, job losses there. And I think many of the areas or the reasons for job losses are not just related to AI. Maybe we're changing the economic landscape as well, whether in the UK or in different countries. But maybe it's time for us also to think, how do we work with AI in a better way that can actually improve our creativity, whether it's the creative teams within the business or whether as business owners as well. I'm going to skip this because I did talk about it earlier, and I'm just going to move to the next slide, which is more about automation versus augmentation, what I mentioned earlier as well. So the key question, one of the key questions we are usually also asked is, what tasks should be automated within my business and what tasks should be augmented? Or in other words, where should I let my staff handle things in collaboration with AI, and where should I let AI just handle things on its own and just give it full autonomy there? The answer is there is no one clear pathway. It depends on your business. It depends on your sector and what you'd like to do and what you'd like to achieve as well. And maybe one of the other areas to consider is how educated are your employees in terms of AI? What talent pool do you actually have within the business? Has there been enough training for you and your employees there to understand how to work with the specific AI systems and specific AI applications related to your business? And I think that's one of the key areas for us to really consider. And unfortunately, usually we are not able to answer the question without understanding the context of the business, the specific sector, the specific vision for the business, and what do you actually do. And based on that, personalized recommendations can be provided in terms of whether to automate or to augment. I also wanted to mention a bit more about the AI skills that we expect to business owners as well as employees to have at this stage, which don't only allow business owners and workers really to understand how to work with AI now, but also how to work with AI in the future and ensure the sustainability of these skills as well in the future. And there is a huge interest now in this area, especially in terms of the training being offered. And if we were really to classify AI skills, and there is a document that will hopefully come out in September outlining a framework on AI upskilling for business, specifically actually for SME owners as well, because we find that they struggle even more often when it comes to AI. So there are really 4 categories here. The first one is transferable skills. The second one is soft skills. Third, technical skills. And finally, the ethics related skills. So when it comes to the transferable skills, we're looking at skills such as adaptability, resilience, continuous learning, curiosity, creativity, as I mentioned earlier, critical thinking, problem solving, and time management. I must say, though, it's really important to not just gain these skills or learn these skills over time, but also to make sure that they are personalized based on the business context as well. So, in certain sectors, for example, curiosity and creativity might actually be even more relevant in comparison to other sectors. So, in that case, maybe there is more training required in that area. Another one or another category is the soft skills, and these actually have been classified as the most important category of skills for most businesses. And while I understand that there are many sectors focusing on the technical skills, which I'll be talking about shortly, for example, prompt engineering or data science and so on. In fact, for most sectors, really the key AI skills category is the soft skills. So, or what we call the non-technical skills. In other words, how do I bring the human skills needed to work with AI in a better way? So, with the merging of the AI input and the human input, we can really bring a much better output. So, some examples of these skills include communication, collaboration, leadership, cultural awareness, and networking. I can't remember if I mentioned negotiation, but that's another one of them. There is also, of course, the technical skills. So I mentioned here some of the, or I put here some of the marketing related technical skills, but also there is, of course, the information system skills. So for example, skills related to prompt engineering and AI and machine learning, training new models, ensuring that models are up to date and have the latest sort of integrations of prompts in them as well. Data analysis and interpretation, digital marketing automation, and voice conversational marketing, for example. So how do we work on the systems to provide better outputs for businesses? And usually we don't actually see a very high number of people within the business focusing on this area rather than having sort of a team designated to focus on the technical skills. There are also skills related to ethics, and this is actually becoming more and more important nowadays. So how do we ensure that AI systems are inclusive enough? And of course, at the same time, we follow the GDPR requirements, as well as other laws and regulations that we expect to come out soon in relation to ethical AI practices. And that's actually another key area that we see many businesses asking questions about to try and avoid the risks associated with the use of AI. Especially, for example, in terms of privacy preserving AI technologies and data collection, ensuring fairness in AI-driven decisions, and given that AI is fed by data from different stakeholders groups, it's really important to also ensure representation. Finally, I'm just going to provide a brief talk about our executive education program. So please do feel free to have a look. I provided the QR code here, and I think it will be great if we can provide it in the chat as well. So this is a 3-day course that we are offering in our London campus, which, as I mentioned earlier, is 15 minutes away from Oxford Street. It's really beautiful. And the course will be running on Saturdays. So I'll be talking about the structure of the course in a minute. But I just actually realized that my laptop is running out of charge. So Marcus, do you mind if I just, if you give me a few seconds just to charge it, and I'll come back to you in a minute. Apologies.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nisreen. Well, thanks. We need Nisreen back actually to answer a couple of questions, but feel free to add a couple of additional questions in the chat function. I've also added a link to the Royal Holloway website where you can find out more information on the business school and the 3-day executive education course that's taking place in September as well. So hopefully Nisreen will rejoin us in a second. You're back. Fantastic.
Yes,
Good. I say thanks so much, Nisreen. That was so informative. I have a question actually from Anasu, who asked the question, what is agentic AI?
Right, that's a really interesting question, and I'm more than happy to share a paper we recently published on this as well, specifically on agentic AI. So, agentic AI is the next phase of AI, or a new generation of AI systems that can make decisions on its own. So rather than relying on the human input, and usually as humans, we have to make the decisions. With agentic AI, the system will be able to make a decision. So I can give you an example here. Let's say that you have a customer complaining about a certain service or a certain product. Can we actually give AI the full permission to handle this inquiry without any human input? At the moment, with generative AI models, we can't do that. It's very unlikely that AI can actually handle the whole process from beginning to end. While with agentic AI, it can make accurate decisions to ensure that this customer is not only satisfied at that point in time, but also will be a returning customer based on the positive experience that they are likely to have because of the AI intervention. So here we allowed AI to kind of provide a fully automated solution and make decisions as well in terms of what kind of intervention is required to help solve the problem for that angry customer. What kind of intervention is actually required to help the customer to understand better, where things went wrong and how things are not going to go wrong next time as well. And I think that's the beauty of the next generation of AI. I think there is a lot of sentiment analysis involved. So it's also understanding the emotions of the user, of the AI system. And based on that, decisions will be made fully automated without any human intervention. I hope that answers your question. And maybe later on, I can share that paper as well, and more than happy to discuss it. Please feel free to reach out by email. And while I'm talking about email, sorry, I realize there are too many slides here, so I'm going to just skip to the end. But here's my email address. Please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, great answer. Thanks, Nisreen. And then we had a question from Tom. So AI has phenomenal potential. However, there's a lot of hype around AI and many new products being consistently launched. It can feel overwhelming at times. What would be a good starting point for an exec who is new to AI? And I can absolutely say that's the case. I get phone calls every day about an organization who wants to help me with AI.
Right. So thank you so much, Tom. I think what I could do to answer your question is give you sort of a brief overview of our executive program, which we are offering in September. This is a 3 days program, and this is exactly what we're trying to tackle and we're trying to address in this course. Or in this masterclass. So in day one, we are looking at the basics, and there is no coding or, by the way, any AI skills needed anyway for this session or for these masterclasses. So in day one, we are trying to look at the AI fundamentals and strategic implementation, sort of an introduction to AI systems, strategic implementation of AI, risk management and ethical considerations, and workshops. And may I also just add that actually for each of these days, we have experts and keynote speakers from the industry as well, sharing their stories and case studies. Day two also looks at AI leadership and creativity, which is something I mentioned earlier in my talk. So the impact of AI leadership as a leader in a certain business. How do I lead better with the intervention of AI? How do I educate myself better on AI? And then looking at AI as a partner, as well as case studies on creative AI in different industries. And then day three looks at, or we focus on governance, compliance, and the future trends. So if we are prepared now, fine, but how do we ensure that we prepare in the future? And what key areas in terms of governance do we actually need to look at? I would say this sort of, and I'm not trying to promote it here like in full, but I'm also saying this sort of courses in terms of training offered to execs and to managers is really, really helpful. And in fact, recent research showed that 1 hour of training to a manager in any field can actually double their chances of AI adoption effectively in their business. So just 1 hour of training, enrolling on a training course can really help make wonders and huge change in terms of how a business can really benefit from AI. Does that answer your question?
I think it did, didn't it, Tom? I'll say yes on behalf of Tom. On that, I did have another question for you, Nisreen, from Karen. So what would be a priority for leaders to ensure their team learns with AI, thinking about how each team member would have different levels of digital confidence?
Yeah. Great question. And I think really the very first priority is for leaders to start educating themselves first about AI. I think it's very hard to kind of just designate tasks to teams and understand how teams can work effectively with AI without having themselves first getting trained and getting the understanding of how AI can help these different teams. The other point as well to highlight, which is really important, is not just to get any sort of training and some sort of generic training and generic task allocation. It really needs to be personalized by first understanding what is the scope of this business, what's the business background, where do they want to be, and what's the best way to support them. And I think that's what they should be seeking from that training so that they can help their employees better as well in terms of understanding how to work with AI within their functions and their tasks.
Great. We've got a couple of other questions as well. Another one from Tom. Should a business try to map its core activities? For example, what capabilities does it have that are not AI able? And which activities can be replaced by AI? Should it focus deploying employee time on human-centric interaction with clients and they automate everything else? Can this provide a competitive advantage by improving service quality without needing more people?
Yeah, another great question, Tom. And I think it goes back to my point earlier, which is it's really important for businesses to accompany a business plan with an AI plan. So map the business objectives that you've set for the next 2 to 3 years, as well as the whole plan actually for the next 2 or 3 years. And then create an AI plan that would show you very clearly which of these tasks, which of these areas would require the human AI interaction and the human AI collaboration, and which task and which areas would actually just require full automation from AI. The reality is, more and more we are seeing AI in automated tasks. So I'm been working with companies that are fully automating their marketing functions now. In fact, AI can now do 95% of a digital marketing manager job. So it's for us really, and for business owners to understand which areas exactly can AI take over and which areas will need the human AI interaction and collaboration. And I think that's best done by generating or including an AI plan to accompany the business plan. As I said also earlier, that each business has a very different way of doing things. So it's really important to ensure a sort of personalized mapping done for the business. Maybe it's also good to get consultation. And from my experience working with different training providers, they very often tell me that they started their business wanting to be training providers, but they ended up being consultants as well, because the very first question they get asked is, why do I need AI and how do I integrate AI in my business? And then the third one is, okay, so what skills do we actually need to work with AI in this case? So yeah, in many ways, I think the planning has to be between the business plan and accompanying AI plan as well. Does that answer your question?
I'll go with Tom and say yes on that. Another great question here from Sarah. Interesting that governance is day 3, and Sarah is a fractional COO, so I can understand why this would be a priority to her. I think I want to prioritize that. So could it go further in the day 1 sort of thing on the training course?
That's great feedback, and thank you so much actually for this comment, because it gives us new insights in terms of, you know, do we or can we make changes? I think changes can happen, and if I'm right, I'm just gonna ask Tom to confirm this as well. So Tom, if you can comment on that one. Are participants allowed to do 1 day only if they prefer instead of the 3 days, Tom?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think really it's probably one to pass back to you, Nisreen. Apologies for dodging that one. Just in terms of how the course is laid up. So I think if it's a case where it's kind of modular content, it might be easier just to kind of slip in to a particular session to focus on some topics. I suppose it could be something we could consider on a case by case basis. So if someone is really, really new to AI, then they would probably benefit from studying from the very beginning. If someone is not completely new to AI but wants to focus in on some things which are a little bit more complex, probably towards day 2 and day 3, then that could be possible. But again, I think that's probably more a question about sort of the kind of depth of detail in the specific program. So sorry to bounce that one back to you, Nisreen.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I think what you mentioned is spot on. And again, it goes back to my point earlier, Sarah, that we do aim for the masterclass to be very personalized. And in fact, when applicants enroll on the program, there will be a survey or sort of a questionnaire that we ask them usually to complete to understand their priorities, what are their expectations from the masterclass, what's the business background, and how can we support best. So if, for example, your priority is to look at day 3 and to sort of focus on the content of day 3, then that's something that we can certainly discuss. And maybe more sort of personalized content and case studies can actually be provided on that as well. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Thumbs up from
Hopefully,
Sarah.
yes, but please feel free
Yeah.
to approach me by email. I'm more than happy to discuss as well.
Okay, we're coming towards the end now, but Nisreen, I just wanted to ask a question. You mentioned that the UK economy, from an SME perspective, could sort of add another £78 billion to the economy given the adoption of AI, which would be absolutely fantastic as somebody that runs a business. What if you could give one thing that business could do that could start that journey on AI? Maybe a difficult question, but what's the one thing an SME that just isn't involved in AI at all at the moment could do to start that journey?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, Marcus. And from my research, especially the research I've been doing in my fellowship work, actually the most pressured group at the moment is workers who are working for SMEs trying to upskill themselves in AI. So that's why my priority at the moment is really to look at SMEs. Like from the first stage of the project, we found that really the one group of businesses that requires a lot of support is SMEs and SME workers. I would say the number one advice is please do get educated on how AI can help you as a business, not at a sector level, not at sort of generic level, but really your specific business, your specific vision, and the tasks that you are focusing on as well, and the products and services that you are delivering. Then once you educate yourself, you get to educate your employees as well. So I think AI training, AI upskilling are really key, and it does help a lot in terms of reducing the level of fear and insecurities many people have now towards AI. Trust me, when you get to work with it, it does become a mini you. I'm someone who uses AI before I have my first cup of coffee every day. I'm not afraid of it, possibly because my first degree is in computer science. I absolutely love technology, but it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to really embrace. So I would say education, education, education.
Fantastic. I think it's a very good point in which to end. I'd really like to thank Nisreen. It's been really, really insightful and really, really valuable information. So thank you very much for that, Nisreen. Just like to also share that we will be sharing the presentation with the attendees. So you'll get all the information where you can find more details on the training courses in September, which I think absolutely critical for any business leader. So again, thanks for sharing the details on that. And I know Nisreen said, feel free to reach out to her. Her email address is on the presentation that you'll receive with any specific questions. I'd love to do this again, Nisreen. I think there's loads we can talk about. Perhaps we can discuss that again in September when we're all back and properly in the office to sort of carry the conversation on a bit more. But that's it. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll leave it there, I think. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye.